Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today is the video hopefully you guys have been waiting for a long time, probably for 12 months. Yes, it's about that time, our first hurricane season discussion for the year of 2021. Before we get started with the video though, if you guys have not already, please consider subscribing. It really does help my channel grow. I want to thank you guys so much for 2,000 subscribers. We've flown past, and hopefully we can hit our next goal of 3,000 subscribers soon. And also, to help this video reach more people, please consider liking and sharing it as well. And let's get into the video now. So let's get right into it. I actually do have my own forecast. I actually came up with a preliminary forecast of like named storms, hurricanes, major hurricanes. So if you want to see that, please be sure to stay tuned till the end of the video, but let's get started. So these are the sea surface temperature anomalies in the Equatorial Pacific. This basically determines our La Nina or El Nino, because whichever one we have, or neutral is also an option, does determine or has a pretty big factor on what our hurricane season could possibly be like. All right, so starting off with March here, this is like current right now. According to this particular data here, we are negative 0.6, which is pretty much like around a weak La Nina, and we stay that way potentially according to this through May, and then maybe negative 0.3. That means like a neutral pattern by July. All right, so this was just released like very end, like the day before last day of February, and you can see that we will be heading up towards a neutral pattern now. La Nina does typically favor more active hurricane seasons, but to be honest, an ENSO neutral pattern can too. All right, so it can be both of them. All right, so we have two ENSO patterns that can favor active hurricane seasons. That's why we see active hurricane seasons more often than not anymore. Because only El Nino, one of the three, can really put a halt to hurricane season. And even with El Nino, right, doesn't mean no hurricanes are going to be there, but El Nino chances are very slim, if not actually at zero. So right now we're like in a weak. Now remember, you also have to remember that this is from the Australian climate. So what they consider like the La Nina and El Nino is different than what the U.S. does. So they're negative 0.8 and 0.8. We are negative 0.5 and 0.5. So it's a bit different what Australian calls a quote unquote La Nina, but still we're right on the border between a La Nina and a neutral, right, through March and April, and then by May and into the summer, we do start to climb towards an ENSO neutral. But then maybe then it's hinting at maybe possibly going down again through August and maybe down lower through September. Okay, you can't really see far beyond that. Now, what this is basically kind of like the southern oscillation, right? So this data here does kind of show you, right? So to the right here, this is like the most recent data from like starting 2021, and you can see that we have shot up, and this means we are in a La Nina pattern, or it's just favoring La Nina conditions. When it's below the line, it's kind of like the opposite. All right, so definitely that shot up definitely does kind of worry me, and you're going to see a bunch of maps that really do worry me about this season, right? We know 2020 was very hyperactive. So far, we are not thinking it's going to be as active as 2020, but an above average season is certainly something that we all don't want to hear. I mean, don't get me wrong, hurricanes are very fun to track. I just wish that none of them hit land. Like if a Cat 5 hurricane stayed well out to sea, I would be happy. I'd be excited to track it. All right, so here we got some of the models. If you watch my hurricane season discussions from last year, you would definitely recognize these as well. So this is from March. You can see most models. So by U.S. standards, right? Again, this is Australia. So by U.S. standards, anything beyond this tick right here, this 0.4 mark, anything beyond that is considered kind of like a La Nina, right? Because it's 0.5 and beyond. So you can see a couple models here, the CanSIPs, the European, the Medio. All these models do have us in a La Nina, in which we should be because it's March right now and we are in a La Nina pattern. All right, I mean, that is reality. And then as we head toward April, right, most models still have us, right, the Medio, the NOAA, all right, European and CanSIPs as well. All right, and the BOM, the top one, that's what this website is. This is the Australian climate website. So this is like their own model, if you will, at the top. Right, so definitely still, and then by May, however, right, May might start to change a little bit, right? The CanSIPs, the Medio, and the NOAA, by U.S. standards, still do have us in a La Nina pattern, right? Basically, I'll try to draw it the best I can, right? So this line would be like where your La Nina is, this black line, anything to the left of that, right? So as we head towards June, then it starts to get really interesting because now you can see a couple models are above the zero line, but still in a neutral, right? A couple models are below the zero line and still in that neutral, this neutral zone right here. So neutral, again, is anything in white, right? Anything to the right of the line and between here and here is what we call a positive neutral. Anything between here and here, we call a negative neutral. But either way, they both mean ENSO neutral. And really, NOAA really actually has it going back up, right? Really close to like a more moderate La Nina as we head towards June. And look at July, right? So NOAA kind of has it maybe staying as a La Nina through this month and next month and backing off. And then by late summer, maybe starting to head back in. We'll see. All right. Now, what I'd like to do is compare it because we know how active, now we know how active of a season 2020 was. So this is a comparison of the Sst Anomalies, right? From this time last year. So this is from I decided to do the 4th of March because obviously today's data can't come out yet because today hasn't finished. But this is this time last year, and then this is current at the bottom. All right. And there are some major changes. I will zoom in on the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico as well, so don't worry about that. I chose a zoomed out version so you can kind of see the tropical Atlantic as well. But notice one thing though, right? Look at the Equatorial Pacific, right? It looks more, I think at this time we were in an ENSO neutral pattern if I'm not mistaken, right? I do see a mix of blues and oranges, right? But look now, right? This definitely looks a lot more like a La Nina. And it's still hanging in there, right? But we're starting to see some neutral, even some yellow pockets mixed in. All right, so the La Nina is starting to fade away. And as you'll see towards the end of the video, we actually are under a La Nina advisory. And I'll explain what that means as well. One big difference, actually, and it is easy to notice, but it might be hard for some of you to notice, is look at the tropical Atlantic, right? Now, I know this time of year and even over the next couple months when we see early tropical development, we usually don't see it in the tropical Atlantic. It's usually closer to home. But it's still something to watch out for because look how there's a bunch of gray, right? That means waters are just about average. But in that same area, right, that has been filled up with yellows and oranges, right? So that definitely does tell me, that the tropical Atlantic is off to a better start than it was this time last year. Although there was a really big red pocket, I do remember it was right there off the coast of Africa. That's not there this year, right? But overall, in the MDR, the main development region as a whole, definitely looks a lot better this year in terms of warmth than it did last year. All right, so that's definitely something to keep note of. North Atlantic, if you're comparing these two, doesn't look all that different. Maybe closer to Europe, maybe some warmer waters last year than this year. But overall, not too different there. Now, let's zoom in towards the United States because there are definitely some changes. Not major, but there definitely are some changes because if the water this year is starting to look warmer than last year, then that really is that really does kind of set an alarm because we know how bad last year was. So looking at the Gulf of Mexico, it's honestly a pretty big difference to me, right? And I might, even in my next hurricane season discussion, I might show you what it looked like at the beginning of February, what the Gulf looked like. It looks so much different than it does 1 month later, right? It really did change, all right? So look at the anomalies, right? Notice, all right, we do have a lot of orange and red. It was there last year, but notice there's some pockets, right? We see some blue worked in there, the West Florida. I mean, Florida's West Coast, look at this, below average last year, and we're way above average now this year. So Florida's West Coast, definitely go to the beaches now. It's probably almost warm enough there. All right? And I did actually look in the Gulf of Mexico. There are some portions in the central and southern part that the water temperatures have already hit 80. All right, the Caribbean is pretty much always at 80. That really doesn't change. Right, Caribbean usually stays in the 80s all year round, like low 80s, like 80, 81. But it's starting to warm up there too. And look at the Bahamas. Right, look at that cold patch of water we had there at this time last year. That is gone now. All right, actually, not only replaced by warmer water, but much warmer. I mean, we're talking like more orange color than just lighter blue. All right, so very different. All right, and of course, finally, the West Atlantic as a whole does look pretty different than it did last year in the sense that it is warmer. So that's something to keep watch of. Now, these maps that I'm going to be showing you, for example, this one, of course, it's going to be a lot of drier, okay? It's only March. It's beginning of March, in fact, first few days of March. So there's going to be a lot of dry areas still. But the fact that we already have a gap, right? Like, notice, there's, like, no dry air. And that's the same zone I was just talking about. Where how I said, like, if you don't know what I'm talking about here, I'll go back for you. I was talking about this zone. All right, let me find it. There we go. Sorry about that. So this zone right here, you can see by Africa, this same zone I was talking about is where we're seeing a gap in the dry air, as a matter of fact. All right, so that's definitely something that does concern me, especially as a meteorologist looking at this. All right. Again, no development. We really don't see development out here as we enter April, May, and June. But it's kind of like a pointer. And even the northern Gulf of Mexico, we're not seeing as much dry air there right now. And also in the eastern Caribbean, which I will show you later on the precipitable water map, there is a little batch of moisture there. All right, I'll actually show it to you. Now, this map I've also showed you in my hurricane season discussions from last year. Basically, what this means is the green colors means more convective activity, more better for development, and the opposite is true for the, like, if you want to call it, I don't know what's that, like a red color. All right. Now, this is from the 8th of March to the 15th of March from the GEFS model, and you can see, look at the Atlantic, all the greens, right? So that definitely does say that, conditions are pointing towards, but again, it is very early March and tropical development is very unlikely. Also because as I'm going to show you in a little bit the shear, but the fact that we're starting to see, conducive activity, right, or conducive, I should say, convection activity, that does kind of worry me a little bit. All right, and this is the CFS model from the 12th of March to the 19th of March. Look at this, even more green and even darker greens over northern South America, which we can get convection from, especially early on in the year. All right, and of course you may be familiar with the Central American gyre too, that can spawn in some tropical activity, but there are some greens here going through mid to later part of March, so that's definitely worrying. Tropical cyclone heat, of course, it is a minimum, right? I'm just showing you these as just because it's preliminary, and also because it's going to be nice to see when we look at the next hurricane season discussion. Like, what will it look like? Will it look any different? And you compare. Now, I don't think that I usually like to do this every week, but since we're kind of very early off in the year, I might do these every 10 or so days, just because we're early on in the year. And the next update to the ENSO outlook will actually be coming on the 16th. So I might do a video maybe 16th or 17th on my next hurricane season discussion. All right, but the Gulf of Mexico, you can see, and the course of Western Atlantic, there's nothing there. I mean, any little, if any, tropical cyclonic heat is still remaining in the Caribbean, and even that, right, it's pretty much low to moderate, right? Nothing too significant yet, but in a couple months, this will look a lot different. Trust me. Tropical cyclone genesis, again, there is a chance. Northern South America, although these colors always seem to be here for some reason. That's because a lot of thunderstorms form down there, but there are some spots, near Florida and the Bahamas and over the islands and yes, there is actually even a 10 to 20% chance that something could form, maybe one of those systems that crosses from the Pacific to the Atlantic. But overall, these little areas are just 10% chances of development. Nothing actually issued from the National Hurricane Center, so nothing to worry about right now, especially because, right, look at the wind shear. I mean, we're talking 60, 70, upwards of 100 knots of shear over Florida right now. Like, even 20 knots of shear is like borderline too much. 100, you could just forget it completely, right? You won't recognize the storm one bit after that if it hits that kind of wind shear. So anywhere, I like this map. I'll show you another wind shear map as well. I like this because it shows you like what's favorable and what's not. Like, anywhere in this red zone, which is basically the entire Atlantic basin right now, is unfavorable. And by far, too, right? 40, 50, 60 knots of shear. Right? I mean, if you look at this. Anywhere in this orange color, orange and red color is really bad. Even yellow is pretty bad. And right over Florida, like I said, that's where we have more than 100 knots of shear, 110 knots, right? And that is very significant, right? Not really any patches of lower shear at all, but you'll start to see this change by late April and May. Now, here's what I'm talking about. Look at the precipitable water map, right? There's this little patch of moisture, right? It's kind of moving in this sort of direction. Now, there is also a stationary draped out front that's coming through, so that'll probably put an end to that. And you can even see the dry air behind that front. But still, all right, we are seeing little waves of moisture. You can even see another one that's actually going down towards South America, right? That's a little different piece, but here, let me exit out here so you can see it better. This piece right here is moving through the Caribbean, right? So use this little system that you see right here as an example, to what could come of this. I don't think anything will come of it personally, but I definitely wouldn't put it past it. Caribbean wind shear overall, ever since January, right, we have overall been below the black line, which basically means our average wind shear that we typically see. There are a couple peaks, of course, that we got above that during February, right? But overall, and even right now, we are below that line. So we're below average in the Caribbean right now for shear. even though it looks high, right? Caribbean wind shear does look very high, and it is, right? It's supposed to be this time of year, but it is technically below average as of right now in terms of vertical shear. In the tropical Atlantic, as of right now, we are slightly below average, but I feel like overall, just up and down, up and down. I feel like tropical Atlantic, we're pretty much right on track with wind shear right now. We've been pretty close to average in the tropical Atlantic. All right. Now, here is the hurricane season. Now, this is from the Colorado State University, right? So here we have the chances of what type of season we could see, all right? And this will reflect, so pay attention, because this will reflect on what I'll show you at the very end when I show you my forecast. So the chances of a below average season are 10%, right? 30% chance of a near average season, but a 35% chance of above average and 25% chance of extremely active season. I'll come back to this actually, but just definitely want to keep that in mind. So before I get to my forecast real quick, I'm going to show you these few maps from the ENSO Climate Prediction Center. So you can see the chances of La Nina, right? This was issued the 11th of February. So through March, through April, our chances of La Nina are prevail, right? Above 60%. But then it kind of flips and we see a 60% chance of neutral through May and June, right? But then even July, I might add as well. Then the chances even out in August, and then the La Nina chances prevail once again in September, October. That is really bad, because if we go back to a La Nina, especially during September, which is like the worst part of the hurricane season, that's going to be really bad. And like I said, ENSO neutral is also can still create bad hurricane seasons. 2005 was one of the worst hurricane seasons on record before 2020, right? Well, you know, that was an ENSO neutral year. El Nino chances go up, but that's like less than 10%. I highly doubt El Nino was happening. All right. So, and you can see, look, neutral ENSO by American standards is negative 0.5 to 0.5. So anything above or below that would be La Nina or El Nino. All right. So again, your chances basically, if this were to play out like this, it would be La Nina, then back to neutral through May, June, July, and then maybe August, September, October, or September, October, we'd be back to La Nina again. That's like an up and down pattern. So again, chances of La Nina are greater than 60% through March to May, and then a 60% chance to a neutral April through June. And then what happens after that is very uncertain, of course. I mean, even April can still be uncertain, right? There's a lot of changes that go on. As of right now, Nino 3-4 region is negative 1.2, which is like between a weak and a moderate, or closer to moderate La Nina. So we're still in it as of right now in terms of La Nina. The CFS forecast do have us going up, but overall staying pretty near, if not actually on a La Nina the whole time. Maybe possibly going to neutral, of course, April, May, June, but then going back, right? By August, September, October, could be back to a La Nina. Of course, that'd be very bad. So here is some more, if you want to call them spaghetti models. And this is updated mid-late February. You can see that now these chunk of models, right, they do agree. Of course, there's those couple outliers, but these chunk of models do agree that now, according to this, we could go up, like up to a neutral, and then maybe stay there, all right? Either way, though, this hurricane season does look like it's going to be above average, and of course, there'll be many updates as well. So here's a summary. Again, La Nina advisory, 60% chance of a transition to neutral during late spring, maybe early summer time frame. Okay, drum roll, please. And here is my first hurricane season forecast. Now, on the right, I do have a CSC, Colorado State University comparison. Now, this is not actually, I just want to put like a little disclaimer, this is not actually their outlook. But what do you mean? Well, if you look at the Colorado State University, if you go, you can go, I think, on their website, their criteria of an above average season, right? Their criteria of an above average season, it means 12 to 15 named storms, 6 to 8 hurricanes, 2 to 3 major hurricanes, right? This isn't their official forecast, but the fact that since they're calling the highest chance of above average season consists of the numbers you see on the right there, right? Let's say they were calling for a 35% chance of an extremely active season. I think their criteria for that is like 14 to 17 named storms. I think like around 10 hurricanes, right? So this isn't actually the CSU forecast. I'm sure that'll come out by April. But on the right, that's just their criteria of an above average season. That's why I put that there. So my forecast, 13 to 16 named storms, 7 to 9 hurricanes, 2 to 4 major hurricanes. CSU's probable forecast is 12 to 15 named storms, 6 to 8 hurricanes, and 2 to 3 major hurricanes. So a slightly above average, but still above average nonetheless type of season. And I bet you that this will change. Matter of fact, I can pretty much guarantee you that my numbers will change, right? Definitely still got a long way to go. I think 3 months. Yeah, just under 3 months until hurricane season starts. But now is definitely your time to prepare. Gulf Coast, East Coast, even inland flooding. So inland places prepare. Be sure to prepare as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for updates. I am the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.